Hello, Joshua Walker, and I would like to introduce my project to you. The subject of my policy analysis is social media. My district has a social media policy, but that policy is only for staff and not students. Recently, however, schools have begun implementing social media into the classroom. Some schools have even begun advocating the use of social media. The disparity between what's actually going on in the classroom and the policies that are in place cannot continue, and that is why I have developed this policy. To the left of this video, you will be able to see a link to the district policy that's in place right now. And again, that policy is only for staff and not students. To the right of this video is a link to my policy analysis. And of course, in that policy analysis is my policy recommendation. I'd like to walk through the policy analysis now. The first section addresses some concerns we have with social media. Social media is this wonderful technology that offers so many opportunities to engage our students and to increase learning outcomes. However, there's many costs associated with social media. And these costs are so great that often when teachers are deciding whether to implement social media into the classroom, they determine that the costs outweigh the benefits, and they simply decide not to implement social media into the classroom. So with my policy analysis, I want to alter this calculus. I want to provide those guidelines that minimize the cost associated with social media. So when that teachers are deciding whether to implement social media in the classroom, they determine that the benefits outweigh the costs. The second section of my policy analysis outlines the history of social media. And what I want to do in this section is show that since 2005, social media has exploded in popularity. Of course, 2005 is when Facebook and Twitter came on the scene. And if you are a teacher, it's almost certain that all of your students are going to be using social media. And as teachers, we need to be where our students are. And our students are on social media. So we have to be on social media. We have to implement social media into the classroom. Section 3 and 4 outline options we have available as we create our policy. You have the option of having a very detailed and explicit policy or having a concise policy. If you have a detailed policy, you're setting out very clear parameters, and there's very little room for confusion. On the other hand, if you have a very detailed policy, you're going to have to update that policy very frequently. If you have a concise policy, that policy won't need updated as frequently. However, there's more room for confusion. So clearly, we're going to have a middle ground. Our next concern is how will the networks be defined? There are two options in these regards. School personnel can define a network, or the networks can develop organically as part of the instruction. Education is an exchange of ideas. A highly structured environment stifles this process. Therefore, the organically defined networks will best serve our students. Next consideration is how will students interact with the network? Again, you can have a highly structured teacher-mediated interaction or an open student-oriented one. The preference, of course, would be to have an open student-oriented interaction, but the privacy and safety concerns are such that this simply is not feasible. Therefore, our policy will incorporate a teacher-mediated interaction. The next consideration are the consequences for not abiding by the social media policy. These consequences can be conveyed into district policy or they can be delegated to the individual schools. By setting consequences, schools can maintain an appropriate level of control over their social media networks, and this control can be flexible and tailored to the circumstances. Therefore, this responsibility to set the consequences should in fact be delegated to the schools. Section 5 presents the proposed social media policy. Now, I want to draw your attention to several details. First, the policy establishes the district's right to access all social media on public servers and on school servers. And students and teachers will be notified of this, and they must sign an acknowledgement that they are aware of this. Employee guidelines are also part of the policy, and as I stated previously, the district already has a staff policy in place. This proposed policy subsumes the old one. The new edition integrates employee guidelines with student guidelines. For instance, staff cannot friend students, they cannot publish private information, and employees must mediate student communications. The student guidelines in the policy are broad and they stress etiquette and emphasize privacy concerns. We gave primary consideration to the voice of the student. We did not wish to stifle communications with numerous and detailed policies, and the teacher as moderator will ensure that communication adheres to the educational objectives. Finally, the policy allows schools to establish consequences for violating the policy. Again, this allows schools a flexible means by which to maintain control over their social networks. Our district has entered a new era defined by technology. Our students were born in this era, and our teachers are increasingly implementing technology into the classroom to engage these students. The district must keep pace and ensure the policies provide the guidelines necessary for the effective use of this technology. The policy recommendation is one step in that direction. Thank you.